When Chandru invited me to give a talk to you, I asked him, how long do you want me to talk? He said, 2 hours. 2 hours? I said, oops, it's too long, particularly after a heavy and hearty lunch in this nice air-conditioned, cool hall. I thought this is a sure recipe for a siesta. You know what is meant by siesta? It's a Spanish word for afternoon nap. And it is not just a word, it is part of the Spanish culture. I speak Spanish. I had spent 12 years in Latin America, where there are 400 million people speak Spanish in 18 different countries. But Latin America does not have the culture of siesta. No, they have the culture of fiesta. You know what is fiesta? Feast, partying, fun, celebration. The global capital of fiesta is Rio de Janeiro. You heard of this? You have seen those colorful parades of carnival in February, March. That's not the only thing. Every 31st December, the New Year celebrations, the largest outdoor party in the world is in Rio de Janeiro. Between 500,000 to 1 million people assemble in the beaches of Copacabana and Ipanema and celebrate with samba, not shivering in cold like in New York in Times Square. So, first time when I went to Brazil in 1996, I was invited to give a speech there. So, I asked my host, how long should I speak? He gave a Latino answer. He said, Mr. Consul General, I was Consul General there. Mr. Consul General, your speech should be like a mini skirt. Like a mini skirt, short enough to arouse interest, but sufficiently long enough to cover the area of interest. That is magical realism. That is Latinos. I gave a talk on India, and there was another guy who gave a mini skirt speech about the evolution of global civilization and culture. It was one of the shortest speeches I ever heard. This is how he spoke. He said, in the beginning of the world, there was Moses who stood on top of the mountain and put his hands up and said, God, you are everything, omnipotent. Without you, we are nothing. Then, after some time, civilization progressed. Then came the time of King Solomon. He put his hands here. Man, use your head. You can solve the problems of the world and do justice. Then civilization progressed. And the time of Jesus came. He put his hands here. Heart, love thy neighbor. Lots of problems will be solved. And then civilization progressed further. Karl Marx came, put his hand here. If this is empty, there will be revolutions. And then came Sigmund Freud. Take your time. Sigmund Freud came, and the Latin Americans, the lecturer who gave a speech, he said, we are in this Freudian stage, reached the ultimate stage of civilization. You in India are in the Marxian stage. You live from hand to mouth, we live from mouth to mouth. The Latinos have a great sense of humor. They say, you know what is the difference between heaven and hell? Heaven is a place where you have the French as the cooks. You know, French are famous for restaurants, culinary skills. They are the best in the world. The British are the policemen. They are correct, perfect. They don't use violence, gentlemanly. And the Germans are the technicians, perfect, precision. The Swiss are the managers, everything punctual, correct, accurate. And the Latinos are the lovers. See, we all have our cultural characteristics, the USPs, strong points. So that is heaven. Now, what is hell? Hell is the place where the British are the cooks. Terrible. They don't know anything about cooking. Have you been to any British restaurant? No, there is nothing called British food. And the policemen are the Germans, Nazis. And the French are the technicians. They mess up everything. They connect the wrong wires. And the Swiss are the lovers, totally unimaginative, very boring. They will say they come at 2:47 and leave at 2:28. And the Latinos are the managers. They will make a mess of everything, totally disorganized, chaotic. So that is hell. Now, foreign service is about understanding the culture of fiesta, siesta, and other cultures and societies and people in the world. See their strengths and weaknesses, not from a judgmental point of view, but growing beyond being a Tamil or being a Haryanvi or being an Indian, developing a global perspective, understanding people and promoting India's interests. That is foreign service. Now, you cannot just read newspapers and magazines about markets, economies and politics. You have to understand the pulse of the people. You have to feel their emotions. You have to touch their heart. So, you should get into the literature. You should read books, novels, poems. I will give you a poem in Spanish. Anyone understand Spanish here? Not yet. No te prometo amor eterno, porque no puedo. Soy un cazador de mariposas, tripulante de navios. It means, I don't promise you eternal love because I cannot. I am a hunter of butterflies, flyer in the clouds. So they don't believe in long-term marriage. And they say, another poem, no me preguntes más, déjanos imaginar que no existe el pasado, que nacimos al mismo instante en que nos conocimos. You know, some of our businessmen come to Latin America, they have read history books and about hyperinflation, political instability, military dictatorship. I tell them, please throw away your history books. You want to understand Latin America, you want to do business with them, this is the poem for you. So, this means, no me preguntes más, don't ask me anymore. Déjanos imaginar que no existe el pasado. Let us imagine that there was no past and we were born the moment we saw each other. Very romantic and magical realism. They say, hey, don't ask us questions about the past. Every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. So, they believe in the future, they commit more sins. And there is this ultimate poem which is my favorite. Actually, it's like a pop song by a guy called Axel from Argentina. It goes like this: celebra la vida, segundo a segundo, nada se guarda, todo se brinda. This is the Latin American Bhagavad Gita. It means celebrate life second to second. Don't hold anything. Give out everything. The best. Celebrate life. So, that is Latin American spirit. Now, we in the foreign service, the diplomats, we have opened this Latin America, which was not known to Indian policymakers and businessmen, and in the last about 20 years or so, we have opened the eyes of the Latin Americans towards India by speaking their language in the way they understand. And then by telling our people, don't read history books, look at the present, look at the future, they have the potential. These are the advantages. Now, what have we done? Last year, we did a trade of $30 billion with Latin America, $10 billion of exports, $20 billion of imports. Now, you will think that Latin America is too far, distant, the barriers of distance, the language. Oh, we should do more, we have to do more with the neighbors and traditional partners. Let me tell you. We export more to a distant country called Guatemala, which is in Latin America. It's a small country, 16 million population. Last year, we exported $255 million, which is more than our exports to neighboring Cambodia, which has the same population and they are neighbors. We are very close historically, but we do more. We exported $3.8 billion to Mexico, which is more than our exports to Thailand, Myanmar, or Russia, or Canada. Today, the largest destination for Indian car exports is Latin America. Last year, we exported $1.6 billion of cars to Mexico. And the largest destination for our motorcycle exports is Latin America. The country which buys the maximum motorcycles from India is Colombia, $230 million. And Latin America is becoming important for our energy security and food security. We are over dependent on import of crude oil. We import from Middle East, which is unstable and untrustworthy. So, we need to reduce our over dependence on Middle East and diversify our sources, which we have done successfully with Latin America. We import between 15 and 20% of our crude oil from Latin America, from Mexico, Venezuela, Brazil, Colombia and Ecuador. It is going to be this way, and we are going to need more and more crude oil in future, and the Latin Americans have the surplus and the capacity to produce more and export more. The Latin Americans also contribute in a small way to our food security. While we produce so much of rice and export, we always have perpetual shortage of edible oils and pulses. Last year we imported something about 15 million tons of edible oil, mostly palm oil from Malaysia and soya oil from Argentina. Now, South America has what we don't have. They have lot of surplus land. Brazil alone can bring in something about 50 million hectares of arable land. They have plenty of water. They have the best technologies and best practices. So, they are going to be an agricultural powerhouse, and we are going to, with the growing population and consumption, people eating more dal. So, you need more pulses, more edible oil, and this is going to be a regular assured source. Plus, of course, we import minerals for our make in India like copper and gold and so on. Well, I think I have talked enough about me and Latin America. Now, let me talk about you. I am so delighted to be in front of so many young people exploding with youthful energy, cracking with competitive spirit, excited with electrifying enthusiasm, bursting out with positive vibrations, fire in the belly and shine in the eyes, soul full of hope and heart full of dreams. Fantastic, isn't it? I could feel the energy and vibration coming from you to me. I feel younger. And in fact, I do, you make me remember my own days when I was like you. But there was a difference, it's a huge difference. Let me illustrate this. In those days, the father would buy gift for the children. He will come home after work in the evening, and the kids would say, my gift. Right. He would keep it on the table, say, here it is, don't touch it, don't open it, don't break it. You wait, we will have dinner, afterwards I will open, I will organize everything and give you. That was in my time. But now, in your time, when I want an iPhone 7, I ask my son, hey, can you help me? So, he does all the research in the internet, orders through Amazon, the best deal. And then when the parcel comes, he puts it on the table and says, Dad, don't touch it. Don't mess up. Don't open it. You wait for me. After dinner, I will organize everything. So, you, the young people, have an edge, an advantage over the older generation. Whereas we were all being suppressed and oppressed by the older people. You couldn't do anything. But now you, the millennials, you are in this exciting era of information technology, disruptive digital revolution. You have the power, and you have free access to unlimited knowledge, and you have all the tools to connect, compete, collaborate, and even conquer the world. This is given an enormous confidence and optimism to you, which we didn't have. Let me illustrate it. In the 1990s, when we are opening up the economies, the president of Brazil, the president of Russia, and the prime minister of India, Narasimha Rao, they all sought a meeting with God to seek his help, how to solve the problems of the countries, how to develop them. So, the three of them reached, and first it was the turn of the Brazilian president. He said, God, we have come out of military dictatorship, we have become democracy. Brazil is such a great country with so many resources. So, we want to become a first world country. I want to achieve it during my term of 4 years. Please help me. God said, I understand, but I can't help you because it cannot be done in 4 years. It will take 20, 25 years. So, the president of Brazil started crying. Then it was the turn of Gorbachev. He told the God, God, we have changed the history of the world from communism to democracy. Now, I want to see our mother Russia equally prosperous like United States. I want to do it in my term of 4 years. Please help me. So, the God said, sorry, it cannot be done in 4 years. It will take one whole new generation. It will take another 50 years. Then Gorbachev started crying. Then it was the turn of the Indian Prime Minister Rao. But before Rao opened his mouth, the God started crying. The God said, Mr. Rao, I know what you are going to ask, but the development of India to a level of first world, it is not possible during my term. So, when I was young, I didn't dream that we will have a highway like we have between Chennai and Trichy. I thought it was not possible. But now, there's one of those young people like you working in TCS, he sends a WhatsApp message to God. God, I want to meet you. God says, okay, come along. So, he goes to meet the God. And the God tells him, I already told your Prime Minister, development of India, transformation is not possible during my term. So, what can I do for you? How can I help you? So, this brash young TCS guy from India, he tells God, God, I am not here to ask for your help. I am here to offer my help and services of my company. Why don't you outsource your work? We will do it at 1/3 of the cost, more efficiently. You can have vacation. That is the new young spirit of the Indian youth. And this empowered, confident and optimistic Indian youth is respected, admired, envied and even feared in United States. Why Trump is imposing more restrictions? Because he has seen a guy called Satya Nadella has taken over as CEO of Microsoft. Sundar Pichai has taken over Google. So, he does not want the Indians to take over. So, there is fear. Some of you might have read this book called The World is Flat. Thomas Friedman. Anyway, it's an old book. In that book, he says, in the olden days, the American parents at dinner time, on the dinner table, they will tell their kids, kid, don't waste the food. Think of the millions of poor, hungry Indian children dying every day. Don't waste food. That was then. But now, they tell their children when they come to the dining table, have you finished your homework? Please finish your homework. Otherwise, those Indian kids will take away your job. So, I salute the youth of India like you. You have great hopes on you, not only to change India, but also change the world. You are our pride. So, let us clap. I am also delighted to be with you for another reason. You know, when I retired as ambassador from Argentina, in the farewell speech, the mischievous Argentines made a comment. They said, Ambassador, men are like birds. Between the age of 20 and 40, they are like crows, kakai. They eat anything and everything. Between the age of 40 and 60, they are like eagles. They choose what they want to eat. After 60, they are like parrots. They talk more than they eat. So, they said, Ambassador, keep talking. But the only problem for me is, I can only talk outside. At home, my wife talks, I listen. And it's constant, non-stop talking. And some of it is very unpleasant truths about me. She has some pretty horrible things to say about me. For example, she says, I am deaf because I don't listen to her. I don't hear her complaints, grievances. So I say, you are deaf. And she says, you are blind because you don't see what's happening in the house. And then she asked me, you remember that black dress Mrs. Sharma was wearing, that Armani dress yesterday? I said, what dress? You see, you don't see. You don't see what is in front of you, you are blind. And she also says, I am dumb, I am crazy. You know, one day in the morning when I was pretending to be reading newspapers, at coffee time, which is a dangerous time. So, she comes and says, darling, I had a dream last night. I knew something dangerous was coming. So, I said, I kept looking at the newspaper. You know, I had this dream early in the morning and they say it can come true. And she says, I had a dream that you are buying and gifting to me a diamond necklace. I said, I finished my coffee, had the shower, had breakfast, went to the mall, came back with a gift. I kept it on the table. She opened, looked at it and totally horrified. She was shocked because inside there was a book with the title Interpretation of Dreams. Poor me. So dumb, I couldn't understand what she wanted. You know, just before my retirement, I suffered a heart attack. I had a quadruple surgery. And, you know, my friends teased me about it. So my Indian friend said, "Oh, it's all because you ate too much of Argentine meat. The Argentine are the best meat in the world. So meat all over, there is no place for the blood to go." But my Argentine friend said, "No, don't blame it on the Argentine meat. It's because you did not drink sufficient red wine. Red wine is supposed to be hot, it clears the paths, and they have a famous wine called Malbec, which is the signature wine of Argentina." They said, blame it on not taking enough quantity of red wine. And guess what my wife said? She was shocked and surprised to discover that I had a heart. How can one have a heart attack if you didn't have a heart? Huh? So it was proven. Now, I know some of you girls here might think that with all these wifey jokes, I am sort of gender biased, male chauvinistic pig, like that. So let me make it up to you. One day I had a dream, not a dream, I actually, it was a fantasy. I prayed to God, and the God appeared. I told him, "God, you made my wife so pretty and beautiful. I thank you." So the God said, "Yes, son, I made her so that you love her." Then I said, "God, you made her so kind, so affectionate. I thank you." So God said, "Yes, son, I did it that way so that you love her." Then I said, "God, she's a fantastic cook. She makes magic out of vegetables, meat, delicious food she makes. I thank you." So the God said, "Son, I did it so that you love her." Then I asked God, "God, can I ask you one more question?" "Yeah, go ahead." "Why did you make us so stupid?" So the God looked at me and said, "Son, I made her like that so that she loves you." If she was smart, she wouldn't have married a dumb guy like me. But I admire the Brazilian girls who are the smartest in the world. So there is this Brazilian girl, she meets an American from Texas, Houston, guy with a big hat, a billionaire. He comes to Copacabana beach and falls in love with this, what they call the Garota da Ipanema. A girl from Ipanema, I heard an old song, Frank Sinatra. So he falls in love with her and then he proposes marriage. "I want to marry you." Okay, marry, and they go back to Houston. So when they reach there, he takes her to his large mansion, and in the evening she makes her sit there in the dining table and says, "Now that we are married, I want to explain to you the 3 rules of our marriage." So the Brazilian girl said, "Senor, yes, please go ahead. Rule number 1, I'm the boss." So the Brazilian girl said, "Fine." Rule number 2, I will go out at any time I like, do whatever I like, no questions. So the Brazilian girl, "Fine, no problem." Rule number 3, as and when I come home, whether it is 2 in the night or 3 in the morning, food should be ready, warm, on the table, and you should be there to serve it. So the Brazilian girl said, "No problem, done." And then he thought there would be resistance, she would be shouting. So then he became feeling a bit guilty and said, oh, now I have put so many conditions. You have anything to say? She said, si senor, since you are asking me, let me put one condition from my side. What's it? She said, you see the bedroom there? There will be sex every night at 10 o'clock, whether you are there or not. So that's how the Brazilians handle the Americans. That's how the Brazilians explain their foreign policy vis-a-vis the United States. Now, I see quite a lot of women joining the civil service and a few of them in foreign service. But there is a saying that diplomats never say no and the women never say yes. True? You won't say yes, obviously. But the diplomats, by never saying no, get into all kinds of problems. They have to find a way to do something because they are very polite. So they have to work hard, it's very challenging. But the women, they never say yes, but get whatever they want. So as a diplomat, I bow before the women. You are better than us. Now I'll give you an example. In one of the cocktail parties, I was there was this lady who came. She joined our conversation. So the waiter came, and being a lady, no, Indian, she wanted to be cautious. She asked, Madam, will you have some soft drinks? She won't say yes, right? She will say no. Then afterwards asked, Madam, will you have some Coke? No. And afterwards asked, Madam, will you have some light alcoholic stuff like beer? No. Guy gathers some more courage and says, Madam, will you have some wine? No. Then he does this, picks up courage and says, Madam, will you have some whiskey soda? No soda, no soda, no soda. Whiskey on the rocks. Huh? So I salute you. Looking at you people, I see there are three categories. The first category, people who are fully equipped with competence, knowledge, confidence, and the right conducive ecosystem. You know you want this and you are going to get it. The example for this is my batchmate called Shankar, who is the foreign secretary. His father was an IAS officer, K. Subramaniam, and he was not like any other IAS officer. He was what is called the Chanakya of India, the Kissinger of India. He was a strategic thinker, most admired and respected strategic thinker of India. Now, your father and my father would take you during the weekend, where? To the park, to the beach. But Jaishankar's father took him to the library of Indian Defence Studies and Analysis Institute in Delhi. That's where they spent the weekend. Because he was working and he would ask the kids to be there. He had a brother who also joins IAS. But Jaishankar, he wanted to do one over the father and he wanted to join foreign service. So it was clear. So he joined JNU, he studied international relations, and cracked the exam and passed, and foreign secretary in the first category. Then there is the second category, which is a large majority among you, is you have knowledge, but you are also aware of ignorance gaps. You have confidence, but also you have doubts. Little this, little that. Once I asked a Venezuelan guy, are you married? He said, más o menos, means more or less. So, many of you are in that category. And there is a third category of people who are innocent and ignorant. I belong to that category. And I was young. You know how I got into the foreign service? Out of sheer ignorance and innocence, it was just an accident. When you fill up the forms, so you all think and say what service. I didn't think. I just saw in the prospectus whatever they gave. First they put Indian Foreign Service, IAS, and I just filled up in the same form. In those days, for IFS, the interview marks were higher, 300, and for the IAS is 200. But I did not analyze, think, should I be opting for foreign service? No, I didn't use my mind. I was 100% innocent and 100% ignorant. And then I got selected. And when I got selected, then I told my friends, hey, I haven't pressed the flesh of any IAS or IFS officer. I haven't come anywhere, like Supreme Court says, even 500 meters near them. So, I want to meet somebody. So, one of my friends, he took me after I got selected to a lady called Rati Vinay Jha. She used to be the collector of Chennai. She later retired as Secretary of Tourism. So, I told her, Madam, I got selected. She asked, what service? I said, foreign service. Tell me your background. So, I told my background. Then she said, country bumpkin, patti card. So, you won't fit in the foreign service, a wrong choice. It's not your cup of tea. Then I started crying. What have I done? And then I asked, Madam, is there any way I can change? No, done, that's it. You can't change. So, that's how I joined foreign service. So, I call myself as an accidental ambassador. Out of sheer ignorance. I didn't think. And yes, I was a country bumpkin. I was born in a village. I got a name called Alangudi, but unusual surname called Mahajanam. Alangudi Mahajanam. It's about 15 kilometers from a town called Lalgudi and 35 kilometers from Trichy. And there is a guy from there. Where is Kribakaran? Ah, he is from my village. next village. And my family had half an acre of land. And I was the eldest, 2 more brothers. Difficult. And my father was completely irresponsible and reckless. And both my father and mother were illiterate, but my father had a little bit of literacy. He can read a bit and count a bit. You know what can he read? Wine shop. You know what can he count? Cards in the rummy. So, he was losing money in the wine shop and in the rummy playing. But fortunately, they sent me to the house of my uncle in a place called Rara Muttirai Kottai. It's near Tanjavur, it's about 8 kilometers, small village. And that uncle didn't have children, so I was adopted. That uncle had about 10 acres of land, and he believed உழுதுண்டு வாழ்வாரே வாழ்வார் மற்றெல்லாம் தொழுதுண்டு பின் சொல்வார். So he thought I should look after the cattle, work in the fields and inherit the land from him and continue like he continued from his father. So he said, all this reading and all is not going to help. But there was a school elementary school in the village up to 5th grade. So I went there. And then when I had to go to the 6th grade to another bigger village called Mariamman Kovil. So they had a higher elementary school up to 8th grade. I had to walk 4 kilometers barefoot, and we had no electricity in our village, kerosene lamps. And of course, I was not the only one, all my friends were like that. So we went to the school in Mariamman Kovil, but we had to do all the work. In the morning before you go to the school, you have to cut the grass, feed the cattle and do plowing, help. If there is transplantation or harvest work, then you have to apply for leave and stay home, like that. So priority was agriculture and cattle, and when it permits, then you go to school. Then when we finished 8th school, we got good news that it was going to be upgraded to a high school. We were so thrilled. Otherwise, we had to go to a town, it was too far. And so we were the first batch, and to 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th. Those days we had SSLC. And when we reached SSLC, there were about 15 of us. And some 4 or 5 boys from other schools, they came and joined in SSLC. They were the veterans. They had attempted before. So we, the 15, the innocent people from the school, we all went to them and said, please tell us, guide us, how do we pass SSLC? They looked at us. Forget about passing in the first attempt. First attempt, you do it just to get an idea. Then you make second attempt. Then you know a little bit. And third attempt, with a bit of luck, you might pass. Anyway, with luck, we passed. I passed in the first attempt. Then it was time to go to college. But we were lucky. 4 kilometers to the east of the village, there was a college called Pundi Pushpam College. Heard of it? It's a rural college. Nothing to do, no cinema theatre nearby. And 4 kilometers I had to walk to the east. So in the morning, do plowing or cutting grass, do something, and then have a dip in the pond or the river and come and eat something and run to the college. Morning 9 o'clock in the sun, against the sun. So as soon as I reached the college, in the first class, I sat in front under a fan and I used to go. So the guys who were sitting next to me, they would write on my notebook, Tungade Tambi Tungade. Kalluriyil Tungiyavan Kalvi Irandam. They would write all kinds of things in my notebook. Okay. Anyway, I passed what you call as the pre-university and BSc. Then I came to Chennai for MSc. And in MSc, there were people who were more knowledgeable, who had gone to English medium schools, and it's not a rural area, it's a town. So Madras sort of overwhelmed me, intimidated me. I saw the tallest building, the LIC building in Mount Road. We all used to go and see. And then when we were about to finish the second year, they asked us to do a seminar. You had to make a presentation for an hour. And So they asked who would do the first seminar. They wanted to do the schedule. The first seminar, no one raised their hand, because for the first seminar, the professor and head of the department, who was also principal of the college, and one of the most powerful principals called Dr. Shanmuganathan, he would be there, and if he was there, everyone would also be there. So people were scared. And you know what, this innocent guy, ignorant, foolish, I made the mistake of raising my hand. Huh? And everyone looked at me with shock. What is this fool doing? Getting into trouble. That's it. Once I did this one, they noted it. And then I had to give the seminar. And of course, I worked very hard, and I think I made a fairly good impression on the principal and others. But I got the dividend for that, because after finishing MSc, when I wanted a job, there were vacancies in the same college. And I went to the principal, he said, here it is, take it. So I got a job. Sorry. Okay. Then when I was teaching there, I enjoyed the teaching enormously. The only thing is there was no money. I was getting 600 rupees. And a colleague of mine, he had appeared for this civil service exam once. He didn't make it, and he was preparing for the second attempt. So he asked me, why don't you join? I said, why not? I joined innocently. Huh? And well, I was lucky. I got selected. So when we went to Delhi for the interview, the first thing we did was, we went a few days before, we did all the sightseeing. Red Fort, Taj Mahal, because we were not sure if we would come back again. I got selected and joined the foreign service, but still there were challenges, because I had huge inferiority complex. I was very conscious of my inadequacies. I was very shy. I was very introspective. I didn't have the social skills. But the foreign service gave me an opportunity to grow out of that, to develop a global outlook and meet the best people in the world. The presidents, prime ministers, foreign ministers, businessmen, writers, scientists. You get to meet the cream of the society. And then you had to reinvent yourself every 3 years. We get posted every 3 years. I had done what? 8 countries. Every 3 years they change you. So when you go to a country, you know you are going to be there only for 3 years. So you have to adapt yourself. You have to learn things quickly, understand their politics, economies, make friends, make contacts, and do your work, develop business, trade, investment, cultural relations. And then when you think that you have done it, then you go to the next country, you start again. So that way it was constant reinvention, and also one had to be constantly learning. You can never say that, I have done enough, I know everything. No. You wake up in the morning, you find the world has changed. So you have to be constantly learning, and this gives not millions of dollars, but it gives a sense of satisfaction. You feel good with yourself. I hope many of you joined foreign service. You know, it's your choice. Anyway, let me now say finally a few things, not as advice. I haven't become that old. One is that I know you are all very anxious about the destiny, the destination, the exam. You have to clear it 1 year, 2 years. So, you work like mad, desperate, hard work. But I think you should relax a bit and enjoy what you do. Celebra la vida segundo a segundo. Enjoy every moment of it, like what you do. I think that's important. You know, in bureaucracy, there is a game, there is a culture of passing the buck. You know? So, the joint secretary passes the file to the deputy secretary, to the under secretary, section officer, and then when it comes back to him, he sends it to the additional secretary, secretary, minister. Okay. Passing the buck, not taking responsibility, pass it on. So, that is a culture. So, there was this district collector who had gone on camp to a remote area, and it was hard work, still 8:30, he was there with his assistant, and his wife kept calling, darling, when are you coming? But the guy was very tired. Huh? So, he had a few drinks and asked the assistant also, why don't you join me? So, they had drinks. And then, after a bit, feeling good about himself, so he calls the assistant and asks him in his drunken mood, tell me, is sex work or pleasure? So, this guy is also equally drunk. So, he says, sir, it is a pleasure. Explain it. Sir, if it was work, you would ask me to do it. Ask the buck. Huh? So, preparation for the civil service exam, you do it yourself, right? You should enjoy it. You should have a smile. You should celebrate. You should be happy about it. You should be happy with the learning new things. I know many of you are engineers. You take sociology, anthropology, political science. It's very interesting. And anyway, in the interview, they catch you on these things. Second, you should be not very serious, as though you are carrying the whole world in your shoulders. Relax, loosen yourself, and do something to work out your body, gym or run or games, or yoga, something where you sweat out and and if and when the body is fit and good, you feel good with yourself. And also you should do something to diversify the feed for your brain. Don't do 24/7 same political science and whatever subject you are taking, doing overdose after overdose. You should diversify. You read some biography, see some movie, listen to music, something totally different. And also you should feed your heart with some romance. Fall in love. People among you who are already fallen in love, you can walk in the air, catch the moon, right? You see, knowledge, competence, hard work, 1 + 1 + 1 will give you 3. But this kind of confidence and inspiration you get out of these things will make the 3 into 3,000. When you feel good about it, when you feel inspired, anything, romance, novels, movies, anything, make yourself, you love yourself, that should feel good. And then don't think that, oh, you are not perfect, you have a lot of inadequacies. No one is perfect. I play golf. So, golfers do, between the shots, they do a lot of dirty talk. And so, we say, to enjoy golf and sex, you don't have to be perfect. You can be an amateur, still you can enjoy. We don't have to be a professional. So, don't worry that you are not perfect. And remember that they are not looking for the best candidates who clear 100. If in a year no one comes up to that, they are not going to stop selection. No, it is relative. So, if there are 1000 worst people, they choose the first 600. Okay? So, it is relative. So, there is a story about this American and a Chinese. They were going into the jungle, trekking, hiking, and stop at a place and sit down and have some snacks and refreshments, relaxing. And they hear the roar of a lion in the distance. And then it starts coming. So, the Chinese guy quickly changes his shoes and puts on running shoes. So, the American looks at him and says, hey, come on, you are not going to outrun the lion. So, no point in running and losing energy and being eaten. Right? Logic. But the Chinese guy says, hey, mister, I don't have to outrun the lion. I just have to outrun you. If I run faster, the lion will catch you. By the time it finishes with you, I am out. And another thing is, in our lives, not everything is so rosy and romantic and pleasant. There are realities which are sad, bad, mad, ugly, unpleasant, a lot of things, financial problems, parents, lots of issues are there. So, don't be overwhelmed by these realities. Don't do this linear thinking that, oh, I have this problem, this problem, this problem. You are sunk. In the 1900s, the mayor of New York City, he called the scientists and the economists and the best brains in the city for a meeting to solve a problem. The problem was horse shit, because those days they were using the horse drawn carriages. There were about 7,000 of them at that time. So, one of the biggest jobs for the municipality was to remove the shit, horse shit. So, they asked the scientists and the economists, hey guys, think out of the box, come out with a plan. What will happen in the next 50 years? Give some projections. But these guys, they didn't think out of the box. They thought in a linear way. And they calculated, 20 years back there were so many horse carriages, 10 years back was so much, now it's so much. So, they extrapolated it and said in 50 years, New York will be 5 feet full of shit. Because the 7,000 horses will become 100,000 horses. So, there won't be any place for people to walk. We will all be. But they didn't realize there was a guy called Henry Ford. He thought, you don't need more horses or faster horses. And he invented a car, right? Out of the box. Unrealistic. But these realistic people, they do all these linear things. And last, I know some of you had attempted this exam earlier, but the outcome of this exam is not an indicator of your capabilities or your potential. If you have cracked it, it doesn't mean you are the smartest. If you don't crack it, it doesn't mean you are dumb. There was this American who went to Spain. He went to a restaurant for dinner. When he was eating, he saw in the other table, there were about 8-9 people, Spanish guys, eating and enjoying the food and commenting, saying that very delicious, great food, making so much of noise. So the American called the waiter and said, "What is it they are eating?" The waiter said, "Senor, yesterday there was a bullfight. The testicles of the bull, delicacy, exotic." And he asked, "Can I also have?" He said, "No, it's not unlimited. So wait for the next bullfight. So there is one tomorrow, so you come day after tomorrow. So you come the day after tomorrow." And he comes and he gets a plate, but very small quantity. So then he calls the waiter, "Hey, what is this? I saw that the 8 people were eating. It's so small." So the guy looks at him and said, "Senor, sometimes the bull wins." Okay, I'll stop here. Thanks. Good luck to you. Okay, now I am open to any questions. Feel free to ask me. Yeah, go ahead.
What was your hard task, like tough task that you had as an ambassador in another country?
One of them, I think the most professionally exciting place was when I was posted in Pakistan. I was in Karachi. You know, when I went there, I read all those books by Indian authors saying Pakistan, the enemy state, Jinnah did this, we were so generous, we were nice, but these guys divided the India, you know, all kinds of prejudiced writing, Indian history. So I had a great boss called Shankar. You heard of him? He was brilliant until he went mad recently. He talks nonsense. He was my role model. So he, in the first meeting I had with him, he called me and asked me, "So how do you look at Pakistan?" So I told him all those things I read. How we were right, they were wrong. How we were morally superior. We were the Gandhians, we did sacrifice. So he listened to all that and said, "Vishwanathan, you have to disabuse your mind of all this accumulated shit. Get rid of it. And start with the open mind. Open your eyes. You are not here to prove to them that the Indians are superior. You have a job to do. So if you go around telling the Pakistanis, hey, we are superior, they will kick you. So you have to make friends with them. You have to get your job done." So that's what I did. I had to reinvent myself. I have to unread all that I read. I have to unlearn whatever I learned and start from scratch, look around Pakistan and Pakistanis with new eyes, and I did very well. And in fact, I used to say that in those days I had more friends in Pakistan than in Karachi than in Delhi, genuine friends. You know, Pakistanis are as good or as bad as Indians. In fact, I would say that they are even one shade better than us, because you know, in India we have this 5,000 years of history, tradition, caste system weighing heavily on us. Whereas the Pakistanis started from scratch, clean slate. So, they don't have anything to pull them back. So, they have to only go forward. So, they are progressive and forward looking, and they are very friendly. But the only problem is the political military setup, and that is a different story. Then I had another experience in Mauritius. You know Mauritius? In Mauritius, there are about 100,000 Tamils who had gone there 250 years back with the French. The others from Bihar, they went 150 years back with the British, but the Tamils went there before. So, in the first time they invited me to give a speech in Tamil. So, I prepared. I went there, I delivered a lecture, I cracked a lot of jokes, but no one laughed. I looked blank. So, I was very dispirited, discouraged. Anyway, I finished the speech quickly and then called the guy who invited me. What is this? Something wrong with me or with you guys? He said, sir, you must forgive us because none of us understand Tamil. So then I asked, why the hell did you ask me to speak in Tamil if you didn't understand? But you know, we all want to hear the sound of Tamil. We want to feel how it is. So they are nostalgic, they are reviving their culture and language. In fact, I had seen some of the Tamil ceremonies like Thimidi and so on, Kavadi and all, they do it much more vigorously, with more fervor than here in Tamil Nadu. So the next time when they invited me for a speech, I was smarter. I said, if you want me to speak in Tamil, you must have an interpreter. They, it's a small population of 1 million, they have more contradictions than India. English is the official language, French is the popular language, but the language of communication is Creole, which is a kind of bastardized version of French with all kinds of mixtures, Creole. So I went to give a speech, and there was this guy, interpreter in Creole, he was interpreting, but he was a lousy interpreter. So, I could feel, although I didn't know what he was saying, that he was struggling. So then I told him, hey friend, you know, the audience is not enjoying my speech. So now I am going to tell a joke. Okay? So listen to it very carefully. Okay? I will tell slowly. They said, yes sir. So then I narrated a joke for about 5 minutes slowly. He listened to it and then translated in 5 seconds. And people started laughing and they wouldn't stop. They were laughing for 5 minutes. I was surprised. Oh, here is a magician. Then afterwards, I asked him, friend, how did you were earlier struggling, how did you manage to translate my 5-minute speech in 5 seconds? He said, sir, forgive me. I didn't translate to a joke. I told them the ambassador Saab has made a joke for, please, all of you should laugh for 5 minutes. So, yeah, all kinds of experience. Yeah, please. Yeah. Anything else? Anything on foreign policy? Yep.
There's a lot of reports that say that India is one of the smallest diplomatic corps among many countries. There are people who believe that it's quite harmful for our foreign policy going forward. There are some who also believe that allows officers to operate with much more freedom than, say, there is structure to different departments. What is your view of whether or not we need to have a larger diplomatic corps, or is our present size enough for that operation?
No, it's true, because the number of diplomats is about 700. Brazil has about 2,000. So we have to increase, but more people should be willing to join. We should increase. But I should also tell you, see, the diplomats can enhance the image of the country, do promote only to a certain extent. But basically, you in IAS or in the domestic service, you have to transform India, build the country. That is more challenging, and that is more of a priority. And when you build a economically strong country, well integrated, progressive, strong, and that will speak for itself, and people will do this. You don't have to ask them to do this. So, external image depends on internal strength. So, I would say that building India, transforming India, that is the priority. You know, like, do you know what is the foreign policy of Switzerland? Who cares? Do you know who is the president or foreign minister? No one cares. But we all respect Switzerland. We all are big moneyed people, they put their money there in the bank. And they have a company called Nestle which rules the world. And they have the banks which run the world. So they speak for themselves. I look at the Koreans. Who cares about Korean foreign policy? It is Hyundai or LG or Samsung. It gives the image. So if you people, join the IAS and other services and make India strong and big and powerful, you may not need so many diplomats. No, that's a private view.
How long we will posted for in India?
Well, the posting in Delhi, I call it as the foreign posting without foreign allowance. They speak a language which I don't speak there. Once there was a Mexican delegation which came to, it was a parliamentary delegation, and they were to meet a member, the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee of Rajya Sabha, who was a gentleman from Bihar. So, I was the joint secretary dealing with Latin America. So, I had to be present in the meeting, and I also had to brief the Indian side. So, I got to brief him, and he asked me, tell me in Hindi. I say, I'll tell you in English. So, we called an interpreter. So, I spoke in English, the Hindi translator interpreted for him. So, he was mad at me, and he became even madder, because when the Mexican delegation walked in, I started talking to them in Spanish. So, he thought I was a traitor to the country. I speak foreign language, but don't speak. Domestic posting we do, that's part of the deal. Normally, we do 2-3 postings outside and 1 posting here. That also helps you to, see the reality in India. Otherwise, you get carried away by the cheers and your excellency, all those fancy stuff. And it also gives the opportunity to interact with people from finance ministry, home ministry, others. And also, more importantly, for our children to get a Indian grounding. Otherwise, they go to American, British schools abroad, and they become rootless. So that is important. Also, when you are in Delhi, you are in policy making. Outside, you give inputs for policy making and you implement. But when you are in Delhi, you constitute the policy. Okay? So if you are in charge of Europe or Latin America, so you formulate policy. So that way you have an overview. So that way it's more interesting. Although it's a bit a hot posting for us, because outside, life is better. It's more comfortable. The government provides everything to you. They provide housing, healthcare, and the best club membership, and everything is taken care of. And for your children, when the children go to school, the government pays for each kid whatever is the cost. It runs into something about $2,500 for each kid. And whether you are ambassador or first secretary or section officer, for everyone the government pays, which is very good. But they pay only for 2 kids. Huh? Don't have more.
Sir, India has recently opened our market, globalization. So, but there is a rise of regionalization, that is anti-immigration, protectionism measures in the global level. So, what's your view on that?
See, it is the conflict between the winners and the losers.
We are in the losing side.
No, we are the winners in globalization. So, you want them to open the world for our IT guys and open their market for our companies. So, in fact, we have some issues, but on the whole, globalization has become better for India and some of the major developing countries. And the developed countries, they were the winners earlier in globalization. So, they wanted everyone to open their markets. But now, when they find that the other guys have become smarter and they are not getting any more benefit, then they cry and they say it is not free trade, it should be fair trade. But this is also due to the international corporate movement. If you look at it, the China before 1980 had nothing. But some American companies went there and they wanted cheap labor and produced at a fraction of the cost. They shifted the production. And then the guys who were supplying inputs to these companies, so components, parts, they also shifted to China. They said, oh, we will supply you from there using those labor. Then when one company went, their competitor went. Then the others went. So, it was like a herd. Everyone went there. They didn't apply their mind. The government, Trump or other people did not think at that time. It was unfettered free movement. All the American corporations and European corporations went to China. They set up plants, and now what happened? They hollowed out the industry in America. Because now they can't produce. America is not competitive. So, all the industries have shifted to China. And China was clever. They quickly learned, absorbed these technologies legally, illegally, and stole. And 20 years back, no one heard of anything called high-speed train in China. There is nothing. They had no knowledge. They got it from Siemens and Toshiba. But today, China is the leader in high-speed rail technology. When they called for a tender in California, the number one was Chinese company. They learnt everything, absorbed. So, this is the same way like world financial crisis happened because of the greed and recklessness of these capitalists. So, this greed and recklessness of these big manufacturing companies from United States and Europe, they thought that was easy money. They didn't see what will happen after 5 years. So, now they have become captive. Now, the Americans cannot celebrate Christmas if the Chinese stop their ships. The Walmart will be empty if the Chinese one day said, oh, no, we don't want to supply it to you. So, that is how they gave the game away. Now, Donald Trump is coming and making noise. It is a bit late. Later, they shifted some of the production to Mexico. Today, Mexico is more competitive than China in production of automobiles, in white goods, appliances. The reason is, while the Chinese wages have gone up, the Mexican wages have stagnated and remained. So, it has become competitive. So, everyone shifted production to Mexico. It became the manufacturing hub for the Americas. Now Trump says he will build a wall and he will not allow imports from there. He has no other way. So if he stops, and America cannot survive. So actually like a mutually assured destruction in the Cold War. So it is another manifestation in terms of trade. And we have 350 or 400 billion dollars of reserves. The Chinese have over $1 trillion, American dollars, treasury bonds. If they tell the Americans, hey, you have to pay up, the Americans have no way to pay it. So it's mutually assured destruction. But China has gained from globalization, India has gained to some extent, but the Americans and the Germans, and then the Chinese now become more clever. So they say, okay, you won't allow us to export to your country, come, we will go and buy your companies. Today, the largest multiplex theatre, cinema theatre complex in United States, owned by a Chinese company called Wanda. They just bought the other day a Swiss company called Syngenta. $40 billion is the largest purchase by the Chinese. And they are in agrochemicals, seeds, they are going to control. So the Chinese have billions and billions of dollars to throw and buy everyone. They buy American senators, they buy American corporations. They don't have to go and beg Obama, hey, please be fair. No, it is the IBM and the General Motors, they go and do the lobbying for Chinese over there. It's money. Yep.
Sir, this is with regards to our foreign policy. What I feel is we are more accommodating to the concerns of other countries. And our foreign policy is at par with the image that we have in global, because taking into consideration the recent events, like our comments on South China Sea's arbitration result, or maybe on our own, like the fishermen who lost life in the deadlock coast where that Italian Marines issue, or even for the matter that China's One Belt, One Road, where it passes through a disputed territory, which Gilgit-Baltistan, which even Pakistan has not accommodated into their constitution. So all these places, are we able to assert our power, or like are we able to assert as leader of developing nations and get what we want? As like what they say is we have to give something to get something back. But are we giving away too much and not getting our due share? How good is our foreign policy, or at this stage, is there much reforms to happen to it? What's Sir's view on this?
We believe in Jesus. Someone slaps here, is that please? We offer it. In relations with the countries is also about power. Who is more powerful, more strong? The strong always prevail. Okay? The weak always give in. Now, when you are weak, you have to hide the weaknesses and project your strengths. But we are very good at doing the reverse. So when Pakistan attacks in Pathankot, we tell them, please come, send a delegation, we will show you the proof. We tell the whole world, please, this little Pakistan is hurting us, hitting us, please, stop terrorism. No, that's not the way to deal with it. It has to be dealt with. If Pakistan hits you once, you hit them 10 times. You do it quietly, not through the television debates. But on the surface, you be nice and say Pakistani people are nice, Pakistani cricketers are welcome, all those soft skills and projection of soft power. But you have to make them afraid. I told you I had a great time in Karachi. The reason was that was the best time in the relations between India and Pakistan. 81, 83 I was there. The reason was Pakistanis were scared of India after Bangladesh. So they were afraid of Mrs. Gandhi, what she was up to next. So they were scared. So they behaved. So they knew that if they do something, they will get worse. So you have to project your power to your enemies, adversaries who do not have good intentions towards you. And not only with Pakistan, but look at it in the larger context. You see, Pakistan creates troubles for us. That is their number one job. It gives them pleasure. And when Indians lose one eye, they are prepared to lose both eyes. It gives them thrill. They enjoy it. But it is not only they. Now, the Chinese, they go out of their way to help Pakistan to hit us, to undermine us. Okay? That will not stop. And guess what? You know who is even more interested in supporting Pakistan? United States. Because United States will talk all democracy, all that nonsense you want to hear. But they know only if they kick the Indians, then they will come to you, buy arms, defense equipments, and seek their help. So, United States thinks that strategically Pakistan is a very valuable asset for them to needle the Indians, to give troubles for them, so that India will go to them. Same like North Korea. You would all read news. North Korea is a threat to the world peace. They are going to have long range nuclear missiles to attack. United States is nonsense. It's just bullshit. North Korea is a devil created by China. Why? To take on Korea and Japan. So, it will never end. If this little leader goes, there will be another little leader will come. So, Chinese will ensure perpetually that North Korea continues to be a threat to China and Japan. It's such a poor country, they can't feed themselves, there is nothing there. You think they have the technology to produce all these missiles and rockets? Nonsense, it's all the Chinese who do it. And who has even greater interest than the Chinese that North Korea should be doing this? The Americans. Trump says, you will stop North Korea. That's bullshit. That's fake news. Because they have their troops in Japan, in Korea, and they are paying for it. Okay? Now, they want to dominate this area. They want Japan and Korea to be perpetually dependent on United States. So, they will not need America if there is no threat. So they have a greater interest in North Korea than even the Chinese. So, you have to go behind the news.
Has India been successful in obtaining support of the Latin American countries in our permanent membership in the United Nations Security Council?
Yes, of course, because they all support knowing that we will not make it. But they know that we all smile and happy when they say, oh, we will support you. Even the British and French say that, and then they work behind to ensure that we don't. You see, this is permanent membership is not given. You have to take it. You have to take it by power. You have to take it with strength. That's the way. So, we have to wait for the next World War. No one is going to give to you. They complicate it with all kinds of things. So, our going and requesting everyone, please, we go to Guinea-Bissau and say, and they say support you. Please give us $20 million away and we keep. So, that is not going to take anywhere. And I think we have not yet reached the power stage. It is not your economy, it is not your economic strength which is going to take you. Otherwise, Germany and Japan should have been there long back. Okay? It is the sheer might, power. So, they have to invite you to the table. Okay? So that is the only way. So, but these are all doing because the politicians, they think, and they want to make you feel good that you want to become permanent member of the council. What does it give you? Nothing. You have to pay more to the United Nations. So you are not going to solve any problems. No, maybe you can use veto on Kashmir or something. But the thing is, with or without veto or UNSC membership, you can still, if you are powerful, you can do whatever you want, you can get away with it. So what do the Americans and the French and the Chinese and the Russians do? They use the United Nations to advance their interests, whatever they want to do, to make United Nations the accomplice to them. Otherwise, if it doesn't agree, then they do it on their own. And the other thing is about, dealing with all these powers, it's not just black and white. It's not that, oh, just because I told you certain things about United States, you should be anti-US. No. You see, in the world, or what they call as, the multipolar world and all that, there is no permanent enemy, there is no permanent friend. Okay? So you have to be flexible, you have to be pragmatic. So in certain issues, China is your ally. You work with them, and they are a great economic opportunity. They are an investor, they have money, but they want to screw you. They have problems in the border, so you have to do that. So you have to compete with them, you have to manage conflicts with them, and wherever it is advantageous, you collaborate with them. And wherever you can't solve problems, you have to coexist with them. So you have to have multiple options, flexible and pragmatic options to deal with everyone. If you go and say to United States, oh, we are on your side, we are your friend, they say okay, and then they kick you because they know that you are there permanently as friends. So only when you kick them and you give them some trouble, then they say, oh, okay, we'll look after you. So you have to do everything. You have to do a bit of kicking, and you have to befriend people, but you have to have all the options. Yeah.
How Latin American people see globalization in recent times? I mean, do people like left-wing organizations or Zapatistas still have influence on their politics?
The last part, can you repeat?
Zapatistas, those in Mexican revolution from 20 years
Ah.
My question is, do people belonging to these forces still have relevance in their politics?
You see, Latin America is like India. It is developed in some respects, not developed in some respects. There are also political complexities. It was conquered, colonized and settled by the Spanish, the Europeans. And in most countries, it is they who are running the show, the whites. Like for example, in Bolivia, which is a country with 60% of native Indian population, till 2006 it was ruled only by whites, and the native Indians, they were not allowed into the main streets, main chambers, main government buildings. But they didn't call it as apartheid, but they were practicing apartheid. So for the first time, a native Indian called Evo Morales got elected. So you have these Europeans who dominate, and then out of this 600 million population, you have about 50 million native Indians, out of which 10 million are in Mexico, the Mayans and Aztecs. They asked for empowerment, they asked for some reservation and all, but nothing worked. They continue to be dominated. And also in other countries like Peru, Ecuador, Guatemala, where there are some the native Indians are a majority, again they have not been able to express that. Then there are black population. Brazil has more blacks than in United States. They have something about 80 million, very large population. And also they are in Colombia, Venezuela, in the Caribbean area. None of them become presidents or prime ministers. There are issues with that. And then there are immigrants, Japanese, Lebanese origin, and then quite a lot of mixed people. So there is element of ethnicity involved in politics, and the region was mismanaged by dictator. There was hyperinflation. There's something about 2,000%, 3,000%. Even as late as 1989 in Argentina, the inflation was something about 4,000%. And do you know what is meant by 4,000% inflation? If you have 100 rupees in your pocket tomorrow, it will be only worth 90 rupees. So those days Argentines would go to the bar and order 3 beers, because if they order 1 beer, finish it and order the next one, the price would have gone up. And those days they used to have a joke that one can never say accurately the Latin American inflation and Indian population, because by the time you finish the sentence, both would have gone up. So there is a lot of mess, and in the name of not globalization, but there is something called Washington Consensus. I don't know if you heard of that. Is IMF recommended reform measures like privatization, liberalization. They were tried, imposed on Latin America in the 80s, and this was a disaster. It increased poverty, it increased inequality. So as a reaction to this, then the leftists came to power, Lula, Chavez, and many people. But that's an interesting thing. I have a blog called Latin American Affairs, blogspot.com. Latin American Affairs. I write about affairs, heart. And then I have another blog, serious one. It's called Business with Latin America, blogspot.com. In this I analyze markets, economy, business, how it is going, hard facts and figures. And I also have a website called businesswithlatinamerica.com, in which I give all the information about what's happening between India and Latin America. And I have Twitter on Latin America, and I have a Facebook group with about 3,000 members, India, Latin America, business and friendship group, where we exchange not just photos, but information and opportunities, business and so on. So if any of you are interested in Latin America, you are welcome to follow. Yeah?
So a couple of months back, you wrote an article where you very well articulated how Latin America and India have a chance to increase their trade given the increasing protectionism in US of trade and the Chinese reluctance. Then perhaps what I'm trying to get to is that with the rising economic instability in that continent, what makes you so optimistic exactly about the trade boost rather between South and
Actually it's the other way. See, from instability they have become more stable, except for Venezuela, which is in a mess. The region has become more stable politically, the democracies have become stronger, firmly rooted, and inflation, which I told you 3,000, 4,000%. Now the average rate of inflation in the region is in a single digit for the last decade or so, and many other macroeconomic fundamentals and parameters, they are very healthy, very sound. Like if you take the ratio of external debt to the GDP, which is just about 28%, which is very good, better than India, better than the United States or equal. So the Latin Americans have learned very bitter lessons, the lessons of recklessness, irresponsibility and corruption. So now they have become more sober, more mature, more balanced, rational, and they are joining the mainstream. So they are becoming noble. And Latin America has a lot of young population like you. So they have what you call it, the demographic dividend. They have, and so there is a lot of growth potential for them, and it is going to be an irreversible one, because I don't see them becoming dictatorships again or going into hyperinflation. So they won't commit these major sins. They will commit minor ones like us. So it is a growth area. There is potential, there is opportunity. We did a trade of last year, $30 billion. The Chinese did about $270 billion. We gave credit to Latin America under $100 million. The Chinese have given $141 billion. Last year alone they gave $21 billion. So, they are there. But the Latin Americans see that they were the earlier they were their masters were the Europeans, Spanish, Portuguese. So, they got liberated from them. Then they were colonized by the Americans, who called it as our backyard, Monroe Doctrine. Okay. So, then when they got rid of that and they thought they would diversify, and they went to China. China was initially good, the commodity prices went up and the demand went up, and the exports are booming. And since many countries in South America, they are exporters of commodities, the boom from 2000 to 2011 was mainly due to China. So, everyone was feeling happy, prosperous, credit card, they were buying lots of things. Then the Chinese stopped slowing. Now, they do not have money to pay the credit cards. So, now they got into some cyclical problems. But these have become manageable problems. It will not go beyond control. And also they have realized that China, while it is a great opportunity, they are given so much credit and so much investment, so much trade, also is a danger, is a risk, because now they have hollowed out the industries from China, Latin America also. The Latin American industries have become uncompetitive. So, they have started becoming dependent upon Chinese imports. So, they have problems, and the Chinese send their people legally and illegally to every country. You go anywhere in Latin America, you find thousands and thousands of Chinese who come and put up small shops, and So, they are scared of China. They want to reduce their over dependence and diversify. So, they want to look at India, because we are not threatening, because we are incapable of threatening anyone. No? So, they like us. And also they are, I think they like us a little more. For example, they like our yoga, meditation. There are lots of presidents, foreign ministers, businessmen who follow Sri Ravi Shankar or Sai Baba, and so they feel that Indians are quiet people, nice people, and they are harmless people, and they even take this to the next level. See, for example, in Argentina there is a nightclub. There are about 600-700 people younger than you, adolescents, teenagers, dancing, but there is a band which plays. It's called Yoga Rave, and it becomes a different nightclub when they play, because this group sings in pure Sanskrit, but they sing it in pop, rock, hip hop, salsa, in all styles to make it attractive. And there is no alcohol there. There is no non-vegetarian food. No drugs, no nothing. And in between the songs, there is a guy who asked the audience to do some yoga poses, meditation. Isn't it? If you do it in India, will you get any one teenager for this? The land of yoga and meditation? No. So, you think that it is all old retired people like me. But over there, they have taken genuine interest in this one, and all these kids, the teenagers, they come there because they feel good with it. It makes them feel good physically and spiritually. So, they have done with yoga and meditation and Sanskrit what we cannot imagine doing in India. That is it. Okay. Thank you very much, and all the best.